Do you want to win more games in FM? You're going to have to keep a tight defense. I'll show you how. Whether it's little tweaks to your defensive settings that you want, or whether it's whole-scale defensive setup, I have got you covered. How will we do it? Well, I have tested all the possible defensive settings against equal opponents across a host of formations. And I'm going to bring you a breakdown of how effective each setting is. We're covering most of it. We're not covering crosses. Don't worry about stopping crosses. It does nothing. But other than that, we've got you covered. I'll start by giving you basic, simple changes you can make to your existing tactic to try and improve the defense. And then by the end of the video, I'll give you a nice combinations of things that you can use that really work well together if you want wholesale tactical changes to make. So if you're familiar with this channel, you know what's coming. If you're new, you're in for a treat. Get ready to see some graphs. Also, if you really like graphs, join the Discord as well. Lots of graph lovers in there. Okay, so defensive line. Going from left to right, different colours, is getting higher and higher up the pitch. 3 different formations. The 5-2-1-2, the 4-3-3, and the 4-4-2. The higher the bar, the more points that team averaged throughout the season. So the general trend here is that the higher the defensive line, the more points you score. Light blue and red being generally the highest for most of the formations, with much higher defensive line being the light blue and red being a higher defensive line. And remember, in these tests, all our players have the same stats, so it's an equal race of pace between our high line defenders and the strikers. Generally, this is the most effective way to play. So as we've seen in previous versions, high intensity, high pressing football is generally more effective. And here we see that again. However, the red bar, so the more often triggering of the press, is a bit more effective than going much higher to the much more often pressing. Now these teams have big squads, but they also play a lot of games in the test league. So perhaps fatigue is playing a role here, and maybe going to much more often on the pressing is just a little bit too much for the bodies to take. Right, next we've got what I'm calling the tick box settings on the right hand side of the tactics. There's a lot to take in here, so I'll work my way through it and explain it. Getting stuck in the green bar is more effective every time than staying on feet, yellow bars. Stepping up more, purple, is more effective than dropping off, the red bars. Trapping inside the blue bar is generally better than trapping outside the burgundy bar. Now you'll notice I haven't mentioned line of engagement yet, so here we go. Generally, a high press is better than a low block. When we start to combine settings, especially the ones that we've seen to work already, we start to see compound gains in the effectiveness of our defending. So when we combine much more often pressing with a much higher defensive line, the red bar, we generally see that this is much better than the standard tactic or the individual settings themselves alone in the green and purple bars. Similarly, when we take those settings and we then add a high line of engagement to it, you get the massive burgundy bars, which make all of those tactics even more effective. And all of a sudden, this trend is consistent across all the tactics that we test. So you can see that all of these settings combine into a high pressing, getting stuck in, trap them inside, step up more, condense the play, win the ball back up high style of play. And do you know what you'd think sort of works well with this? Preventing short goal kicks. No, not at all. Even when combined with all the other settings, preventing short goal kicks is not a good setting. It is not as effective as any of the other settings. In some cases, it's worse than our standard setting. It's terrible. And if you want to make the most of winning the ball back, you've got to nail your transitions. And for that, you'll want to check out my other video here. Enjoy your Football Manager, guys. I'll catch you in a bit.